You are watching Entering Weekly Attendance. In this video, we assume that you are a service provider and that you have been assigned enrollments, related services, center-based related services, or SEIAT enrollments. In order for you to record attendance, you will go to the Attendance menu and click on Weekly Attendance. You will notice a grid or a weekly calendar. The drop-down in the upper left-hand corner shows the current therapist. You can change weeks by changing the Jump To date, or you can use the navigation buttons. Once you've entered this information, you would click Save. The calendar will display any attendance entries that have been entered for the current therapist. In order to add an entry, you would just click on the time slot that corresponds to when the session was provided. A pop-up will appear. You will notice that you can modify the time in and time out to match the exact times. You would then choose the setting that closely matches the setting where the service was provided. And you have the option of providing a description of the location. Once you have already entered a location, the location will save to this field for you to select at a later time. You would just click on the arrow. Next, Child. The child list is all enrollments that have been assigned to you. Each enrollment entry lists the child's name, the frequency, the service type, individual versus group, and the date range. You would select the appropriate one. If, for some reason, there are multiple lines for a child, say you would provide both therapy and service coordination, or maybe they have individual and group enrollments, just be very careful when selecting that you're selecting the correct enrollment. Next, you'll go over to the Units section. Here, you'll enter the number of units per session that you'll be submitting to the county. In this case, we will leave it at 1 times 30-minute session. If there would have been a co-visit, so this is for a UDO, USO entries where the supervisor is doing a co-visit with, say, a CODA or a CFY. This is not for indicating a co-visit with a different discipline. When the check box is marked, a drop-down of supervisors will appear for you to choose from. Next would be the diagnosis or ICD codes. For ICD codes and CPT codes, this box will autofill if you should have enrollment defaults, or if you would have saved your codes to favorites, you would simply click on the heart and your favorites would be listed. If not, you would just start typing in the diagnosis. Once you start typing, you'll notice the code will appear along with the description. You would just click on the code. Now you'll notice that the code is highlighted in blue. To add a second code, you would just repeat the process and save. Now you'll move on to CPT code. Also for ICD code, if there is no ICD code, just so you know, you can type in no ICD in capital letters. and that will serve as the ICD code. For CPT codes, as I mentioned before, if you have set your codes to default, the codes will appear here. If you have saved your codes to your favorites menu, you would just click on the heart. Otherwise, you would just go in and type the code, select, and you'll notice that the units default to 1. The description appears and you'll see the units. If the CPT code is an untimed code, then you would just leave the units as 1, as in this example. If the CPT code is a time code, typically based in 15-minute units, then you would just fill in the number of units in this box. Next would be makeup. If a session is a makeup, you'll want to click the makeup checkbox, and a field will appear. You'll enter the missed session date in this box. You will now move on to the Does Not Meet Medicaid Requirements box. This is not about whether the child is Medicaid eligible or not. This is to indicate that this particular session does not meet all requirements that Medicaid requires. Some examples would be if the session was not provided per the IEP, because maybe the session was less in duration than what's listed on the IEP. So if the session is 20 minutes rather than 30 minutes, then that does not meet Medicaid requirements. Or if the setting or location was different than the specified in the IEP, that also would not meet Medicaid requirements. So any other possible reason that would not meet Medicaid standards, you would want to check this box. You would now indicate progress using the progress indicators. And then you'll want to go in and enter session notes. You can record your notes per policies and regulations. So basically, it's just a brief description of the student's progress. Once you've entered all session notes, you want to go ahead and just click and save the entry. Once you have saved, the entry will appear on your calendar. In order to edit any existing attendance, you would just click on the session, modify any fields that would need to be modified, and then you want to click Save. If the fields are grayed out and there's no Save button, that means the session is signed and cannot be modified without unsigning it. You can only edit an attendance if it is unsigned and not on a voucher. This concludes entering weekly attendance.